Hopefully you'll say
Okay, welcome everyone to Tanya Outside In, Perek Lamed Aleph, um, part B, part Bays. We 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 made a dent in it last week, and we basically were discussing Atzvus and the benefit of Atzvus, but really at the end the Rebbe pivoted and like as we've always said, Atzvus is not good, yeah. But there's what's called Marirus Aleve, yeah, bitterness of heart, which is good. Well, it can be good. It hurts, but the heart's alive. Okay, so he kind of pivoted at the end of the section we learned yesterday, last week, and he said, "Oh, by the way, it's not really called Atzvus what we're talking about because Atzvus isn't really good at all. It's called Marirus Aleve, which is bitterness of the heart, which is when the heart is alive, and now we need to pivot and and we can turn around the whole matzah. He says the handle from the axe comes from the forest. This is the famous. I use that. I use that. I mean, I just that what would you call it? That ma-
Matisyahu song?
what? Oh, yeah,
Matisyahu song?
exactly. Yeah, that Mema from Mattis Yo is just it's so powerful, and you can use it for so many things. So I generally use it for the idea of his boinaness. There's a song, the handle from the axe, the Mattis Yo song. The handle from the axe comes from the forest. Well, anyway, from the handle from the whatever. So
From
so
the forest
um,
itself comes the
what
handle for the
what's the line?
axe.
What is the line?
From the
the
forest
handle from
itself
the
comes
axe.
the handle from the
There
axe.
you go. From the forest itself comes the handle for the axe. Chop it down, chop it down. Meaning, how do you chop down a forest? You use the forest to chop down the forest. So that was said in the Gemara about Navi Ovadia, who was last week's Haftorah. Yeah, Navi Ovadia was a ger from Edom, and he was misnaber. He prophesied or prophesied the downfall of Edom. So that's where the Gemara says that the handle from the axe comes from the forest, meaning who chopped down Edom was Avadia, and he came from Edom, so the handle from the axe chops down the forest. Yeah, but I always use that in context of his boinaness, where we say, what's your ultimate, what limits your mind ultimately is words. Like we've said over and over, remember, um,
Big, great,
exactly,
huge.
exactly. How big, how big does it get when you're calling an elephant big? What do you call, what do you call, Alpha One or whatever, the Milky Way? So, but when you layer words on words, yeah, and you're misboinen, which is from Loshen Bina, Loshen Boine, Loshen Beinoini, by the way, yeah, that you build layers, conceptual layers, which means you actually leave the words behind because you're building conceptual layers, and through um, that intentional um, logical use of the mind, you can actually divest yourself, divest your mind of the limitations of words. That's called his boinaness. Yeah, using words to break free of the limitation of words. So I creatively use the expression, the handle from the axe comes from the forest. Because words limit you, so you use more of them to unlimit you. Okay, but this is where the Alter Rebbe. I mean, he got it from Mattis Yo, but this is where the Alter Rebbe brings this famous not pasuk, this famous Chazal from a Gemara in Sanhedrin, that the handle from that comes from us, meaning when you are in a a despondent state, you just feel down, you feel cretchy, yeah, then that is you're in a good position to flip it around. This is what he says. I personally don't, when I'm in like a cretchy state, I just want to get out of it. There's no like I don't feel like I can do anything in that kind of state. But Yeah. So anyway, so this is what it's saying. So let's keep going. V'simcha b'chinas chasadim kilei kol mishteihem. We're at the bottom here. V'hinei. Yeah. The last word, the first word on the line is mishteihem. It's about 7 lines up. V'hinei. Le'itim. Yeah. Occasionally, tzarich la'oyre b'chinas gevuras hakadoshus. So generally, we're serving Hashem mitzad chasadim. Yeah. But occasionally, it makes sense to activate the Gevuras HaKadoshus, yeah, Kedei Lahamtik Hadinim, so as to be Mamtik Ledinim. By the way, the Chamesh Gevuras and the Chamesh Chasadim are not spheres. They're like different. I don't know what they are. They're like, but they're not spheres. It's not like you got 5 spheres that are Chasadim and 5 spheres that are Gevuras. They're like other. They're Chasadim and Gevuras. The Arizal talks about them quite a lot, and I don't know what they are, but they're not spheres. Maybe they are. The way I've learned it, they don't appear to be spheres. Okay. Shehem bechinas nefesh bahamis v'yetzer. When we're talking in this context of the to be mamtik the dinim, yeah, what is that? That's the bechinas nefesh bahamis v'yetzer because yesholech chas v'shalom ala adam. When that aspect of the man is not is not being controlled by the Adam, but is controlling the Adam. Okay, again, the goal is not to destroy your Yetzer Hara Nefesh Bahamis. Your goal is to harness your Yetzer Hara Nefesh Bahamis. Yeah, as opposed to be harnessed by your Yetzer Hara Nefesh Bahamis. So when a mensch is in being controlled by the Nefesh Bahamis, dominated. The only way of doing this is in the shoresh of the dinim. What is the shoresh of dinim?
Chasadim.
No, that's like a about you thing to say. Maybe.
No, it's actually true.
I know. Everything's rude, but that's not when we say what's the shoresh of the shoresh of dinim.
Simsum
is bina. Is bina.
Okay.
The shoresh of dinim. Yeah, I know. I understand what you're saying. But the shoresh of dinim is bina, and it's through bina that we can be mamtik the dinim. Okay, that's the Indian of Yayin by Havdalah as well. Okay, so he tells you that you should get the Yetzer Toiv angry over the Yetzer Hara. Yeah, that's using dinim, so to speak, it's like using fire to put out fire. When you realize that this is what you need. Now get a little bit back to it. That was a little bit abstract. The fitting time, that is suitable for this avoider of getting angry at the Yetzer Hara. L'roiv b'nei Adam, yeah, not for everyone, but for the majority of people. It's when he is in a state of depression. He says atzvus. Yeah, when he is in a sad state over things of this world. So when you're in it, I don't relate to this at all. This doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. But I'm just reading you how I understand it. That when you are down, you are in a good position to scream at the Yetzer Hara, to get angry at the Yetzer Hara, so to speak, and to pull yourself out of it. Or kach bli shum siba. So why are you feeling down? It could be stuff, like you got a parking ticket, yeah, something happened in the house, something you didn't get enough sleep, whatever it is, you're down, yeah, or just you just feel down for whatever, yeah. As I he shasa koisher, this is a fitting time to turn this melancholy state into taking accounting, yeah, to become a master of accounts. Hanal. Yeah, and to be Makayim, what Chazal says, to be Marcus the Yetzer Hara, to get angry over the Yetzer Hara. And through this you will potter, you will dissolve or nullify the depression or the down, the sadness, the melancholy. that is happening because of the stuff of this world. V'achach yavo l'dei simcha emitis, and then you'll be able to come to simcha emitis. The Hainu, that means shazois yosimel liboid. Put this to your heart. The nachmai bekifloim, to get a double nachama. How do you say nachama?
Consolation.
Yeah, thank you.
Consolement.
A double consolation. Yeah. Achad devarim ha'emes ha'ela. After all of the devarim ha'emes ha'ela hanal, leimor leliboy. That we said before. Remember what we went through in chapters 29 and 30? Yeah, where you basically just assassinate your own character. You basically, this is directed, remember, this is important. This is directed to a Benoni who has become smug. It's so funny because I never understood Rab Manis for years and years using the word smug until just I started teaching this with you guys. When I realized that this is the danger of the Benoni. The real danger of the Benoni. Remember, the Benoni never does an Avera in thought, speech, and action. So what does he have to be worried about? The minute he can do an Avera, yeah, well then he's not a Benoni anymore. So we're not talking about the same guy. So what's the Benoni worried about? The Benoni, we're worried about the Benoni. We're worried about him coming identified with his good behavior. And therefore he becomes smug. And smug is arrogant, and arrogant is not good. Arrogant is terrible. Arrogant is really, really bad. Really bad. And it's one of the things that it's one of the things that upsets me or concerns me. I don't know how you say it, that in the world that I'm in, if all you understand is that the Yetzer Hara wants to eat a lot, wants, Arias wants to look at bad stuff on the internet, wants to shout at people and break Shabbos and be involved in tivers. If that's your understanding of the Yetzer Hara, and don't get me wrong, the Yetzer Hara does want that, but he doesn't really want that. He wants something deeper. He wants to be, as we know, yeah? If you're not aware of that, if you haven't learned, reclaiming sanity, if you don't know that, like you're in such a compromised position because it's just like, yeah, you have to say more to heal him. Yeah, you have to daven longer. You have to learn more. You have to chazer many, many more times. Push harder, harder, harder. That's all you're left with. Because if you've got this like very unsophisticated, babyish understanding of the Yetzer Hara, he's just a lazy, fat maneuver who wants to have sex and eat sweets. Finished. So, okay, no sex, no sweets. Yeah, he doesn't like saying Tehillim. So you say loads and loads of Tehillim. Yeah, he doesn't like to learn Gemara. So you learn it again and again and again and again and again. And but if you're missing the basis of what the Yetzer Hara is, you could be working really, really hard and just giving him more and more energy. It's really disturbing.
Working hard and not smart.
Do you hear what I'm saying? It's much disturbing. It's
When
really
you were saying that, you started this by saying because someone's identifying with being smug, and then you said you don't like people being smug, but isn't really it's the identifying.
Yeah, you see,
That's
not that he's identifying with being smug. It's he's identified with his position
goodness.
as being a good guy.
Yeah,
That leads to smugness.
that's smugness, but it's really the identifying.
Yeah. His smugness is a result of the fact that he's identified with the fact that he's a good guy.
Okay, so you said all those things. Okay, so instead of doing that, we should be doing what?
No, it could be you should be doing that. It could be you should be, working very hard, saying a lot of Tehillim. It could be a lot of different stuff. It's not, but if you're not aware of the foundation of what your lower side is looking for, then you're not
Which is what? It's looking to do what?
to be.
But somebody who's listening to this for the first time, what does that mean? What does that mean he wants to be?
he doesn't want to not be. He wants to be as much as he wants to exist in the most profound, solid, eternal, infinite way he can. So a guy like, for example, you would think that Donald Trump, in a sense, exists more than me on a simple level. Look how big he is. Look how much power he has. Look how much money he has. Look at etc. Yeah. Look how real he is. Look how solid he is. Look how much property he owns. Look how many cars he has. Look how many people work for him.
How much hair
Look
he
how many
has.
people like him or dislike whatever. Look how many people talk about him. Yeah. What'd you say, Gabriel? Well, so that's what it means by to be, just to solidify yourself. And
Oh, I
this is
thought okay. That was something else.
is like the Benoni. This is the issue: is the Benoni has now identified, and that remember that is the Iker tool that we have to solidify ourselves. Maybe the only tool we have is identification. So, and you can identify with your, and this is the reason why, one of the reasons, probably the main reason why people stay in therapy for so many years is because the baggage that they're carrying is their identity, and they can't let it go. That would be like dying. You can't let it go. So you just mull it over and you write about it and you discuss it more and more and that so identification could be with something like we said, like your backache, or with your abusive upbringing, or with the fact that you always screw up. You can identify with the fact that you're a loser. Yeah, that gives you more solidity. That gives you an identity. You're now identified as a loser. Yeah, that is more than somebody who doesn't have an identity.
And
You
instead, you should be identifying with Hashem.
No, I don't think so at all.
And I'm still not getting it.
The problem, no, no, no. That you should be identified with Torah and mitzvahs and Am Yisrael.
Okay, thank
Yeah, identify with Torah, identify with the Shem is basically just going to become a Getchka. Yeah, you can't. I don't know how you identify with the Shem. I don't know how you do that without turning him into some kind of
You
idol.
can't identify with the infinite. You could identify with his Ratzon.
So that's the Torah, did you? The Torah, you can definitely identify with Torah. Don't, and you could also turn the Torah into a Getchka as well, Chas v'shalom. But you can identify with Torah, which you should do. You can identify with your wife, which you should do. You can identify with Am Yisrael, which you should do. You can identify with your community, which you should do. But again, sometimes you have to know that you're identified. The problem is unconscious identification. That's the problem. There's no one who is consciously identified with the Miami Dolphins, if that's a team. Yeah. You're not,
What do
you're
you,
not, you can't be consciously identified with them.
I mean, they're choosing to make that their whole life.
Yeah, but it's still an unconscious identification. That's the definition of it. You can't have a conscious identification like that's holy. That's I don't are the Arabs consciously identified with Allah? It gets into see conscious identification means the way I'm explaining it here is like Avraham. Yeah. Avraham was identified with his mission that you don't kill children. If he wasn't consciously identified, then he wouldn't have been able to have let go of that when Hashem said, kill your child. So I have to. I'm not. I don't know if I'm right here, and I don't know if I'm clear on what I'm saying. So I'm going to stop saying it.
Uh,
Yeah,
I
Gabriel.
would just suggest that
Yeah.
the key is the key to being consciously identifying means that you're always second guessing your motives, because if you're identified with halacha, and then you're keeping halacha and you're pushing people out of the way because you got to get to shul, so you're missing the point, right? So you have to constantly reevaluate. Well, what is the priority system? What's my motivation here?
Yeah,
it's not something you can do automatically. You have to constantly stop and say, wait a minute, what is Ratzon Hashem now? There's no, if you're identified with it, it becomes autopilot. That's it. I think that's probably the point.
That's what I'm trying to say. That was very good. So that like for example, if you're in Kiruv, yeah, now there's the idea of winning. You make someone Shomer Shabbos, you just beat him. Yeah, I've heard people talk like that in Kiruv about, it's like they're like warlords defeating these secular people and making them religious. Yeah, that's obviously not what. Yeah, I'm sure that's not many people. Yeah, but again, like what Gavriel just said, is that's when you've identified with your role as a Kiruv professional, and you've identified. I suppose again, you're identifying with something that makes you more. Whereas
the answer is it's Ratzon Hashem over the details of what Hashem wants, right? If you get stuck in the details of anything, then the details become your God, and you lose the forest from the trees. It's not about what Hashem wants. It's about always asking yourself, what does Hashem want?
But I think that's a slightly different thing. What we're saying is that what does it mean that you're identified with Torah? And you identify with Am Yisrael. Now, I'll give you two examples. You can be identified with Torah, and you can become a Bible basher. A guy who's identified with the Bible, now can become a Bible basher, and he's trying to beat people into being frum, goyim, yidden, whatever it is. I'm just saying that could be. Now, what about Ahavas Yisrael? Remember that story that I had about when I went to that guy got angry with me? Yeah. So he had used Ahavas Yisrael. He had turned Ahavas Yisrael into his identity, and he was using that to make him more. So when I came to him and I said that harmless thing about the mezuzahs, you remember, Mike? You remember that story? No, Yitzi, you remember that story? When I went to the kibbutz that gotten one of the kibbutz, I think it was called near Oz, one of the places that got destroyed, and I didn't see any mezuzah on any of the doors, and I was with a bunch of guys, and there was a rabbi there who I said to him, I was genuinely disturbed, and I can't believe it. Just walked through that whole place and didn't see one mezuzah, and he said, it's our fault. We didn't teach them. It's our fault. And I could see, I'm not a stupid person. I could see that he wanted to fight me. I didn't let him fight me. And then 20 minutes later on the bus, he just like exploded on me. I was just saying, you remember? Yeah. And he's like, you people like you're being Ma'akev the Geula and your mamash, you've seen this chinam. And I'm like, whatever. That was the story. So if he was identified with Am Yisrael in an unegoic state, as opposed to an egoic state, his identification with Am Yisrael on an egoic level meant when I threatened that in some way, he went against me with fire. Yeah. If he was identified with Am Yisrael in a real way, well, he'd also be identified with me, and he would have said something more like, I hear, but we really have to be, we have to really be done because we really don't know, in a loving, connecting kind of way. But he went at me in a hateful, disconnecting kind of way. So again, everything is available to be used in the service of the Sitra Achra, literally everything. And I can't think of anything more available than God, because that is just, I mean, imagine that, yeah. If you're identified with God, I mean, God doesn't get any more than that. That is the ultimate. That's why I hate Oysa Das, if you know what I'm talking about, yeah. Just so I don't get any death threats. You've got the Oysa Ish, you know what Oysa Ish is, yeah. So Oysa Das without an iron. Yeah, it's the opposite of Oysa Ish, the other side. I just don't want to say because I don't want to get any death threats if this gets out. Das,
You mean
that tough. Oyso das. That's what I call that
uh, I'm missing it. Anyone?
Greek state.
Can we
Anyway,
speak Pig Latin, maybe?
well,
Uh,
Islam.
okay, that's what I figured.
Oyso das. Oysa Ish is the not
what's Dalit? What's Dalit?
Dalet tough means religion.
Oh,
Dat. Without an iron. Anyway, so that is the scariest identification is when you identify with God. That is the ultimate. That is the ultimate. That really is the ultimate for your ego. Identified with God, you're now infinite and all powerful and all perfect and all right all the time. And if someone's talking to you and it doesn't completely align with everything that you know, well, then they're just an infidel, and we need to shecht them. So again, just going back to our topic in hand, is the Benoni has identified with his good behavior and he's become smug. That's what happened. But the point is, he's fallen into an egoic state. That's a problem. Okay. And now the Rebbe is helping us get out of this. So chapter 29 basically said, call yourself disgusting, revolting, look at all the bad stuff you've done, look at how your dreams are so disgusting, look at all the things you did as a kid, etc., etc. Yeah. Okay, that was 29. Lamed 30 is now look at compare yourself to everybody else, yeah, in a negative way, meaning even that really, really lowly guy in the corner there, yeah, if you were in his shoes, you would be lower than him. Yeah, because on his level, he's probably trying a little bit, whereas look at you. Like Yitzi actually called me about his benching. Yeah, that's one of the things the Rebbe said in chapter 30 is look at how you bench. Yeah, you think you're such a big shot. Yeah, look how you bench. You should be benching much better than that. You should be davening much better than that. You should be saying brachas much better than that. That's what he says. Anyway, so now we're kind of pivoting and we're talking about now not just the character assassination, but the pivot. Now what do you do? So he says, so after all of this stuff, the Hainu, the fifth line down, after all of these true things that you were saying in chapters 29 and 30, Hanal, lemor leliboy, to say in your heart, Emesu, it's true. Ki bli safek sha'ani rachok ma'oid me Hashem, betachlis. I am mamash far from the Rebbeinu Shalom. A meshukatz a mesuev. I'm disgusting and revolting. V'chulei. Ach kol zehu ani. That's just the ani levadi. That's just the ani. That's just my default perspective. Hu haguf. Im nefesh hachiyunis shaboy. That's the goof and the nefesh hachiyunis, the nefesh bahamis. Avol mikol makom yesh b'ki b'chelek Hashem mamash. But inside me, there is a piece of the Rebbeinu Shalom. Sheishnei afilu b'kal shebekalim. Even in the lowliest people, the lowliest yidden, there is this chelek elokay memal. She nefesh elokis im nitzotz elokus mamash amalubush ba. Which is the nefesh elokis, the godly soul. The essence of it is mamash godly, yeah, mamash. Don't forget the nefesh elokis is a created being, except for the essence of the nefesh elokis. The essence of the nefesh elokis is the Rebbeinu Shalom himself. Yeah, lachayoso, who gives it life. Rak shehibachin is galus. However, it's in galus, meaning I'm not behaving myself correctly, yeah, or I've fallen I am behaving myself correctly. I've just fallen into an egoic state. And that means that my nefesh elokis is in galus, because galus is when you can't express yourself. So the nefesh elokis, who is the opposite of arrogant, yeah, is now being contained. And this is the really crazy thing. I hate saying this. It's so hard for me. Is that even if you're doing Torah and mitzvahs. If you're arrogant, and this is what we're talking about here, a guy is doing Torah and mitzvahs, but he's arrogant. The nefesh lakis is in galus. The nefesh lakis is in galus. Ve'im kein adrabah kol ma she'ani betachlis harichuk me'Hashem. So it means that for Keret, everything about me that is mamash far from the Bore Shalom, Vatiu Vashikas, it's disgusting. Hari Nefesh Rakis should be Begalus Godol Yoiser. The Nefesh Rakis, it means is in a deeper Galus. And then I'm going to have a massive Rahmanas on the fact that my Nefesh Rakis is in prison inside my fat body. Yeah, my fat, lazy, licentious body. And therefore I'm going to put all of my desires and my hopes and my aspirations to bring her out of this galus, and to bring her back to her father's house, like where she was when she was a child. Before she got enclosed in my goof, she was sitting up there, yeah, mamash with the Rabbeinu Shalom, having a whale of a time, yeah. And then she comes down into my goof, into my Gaiva goof, and now she's sitting there in a dark, cold dungeon because I'm a big Baal Gaiva. That's what he's saying. Where she was there, she was mamash, she was partying with the Rebbeinu Shalom. Begam ata, and now Kainte klula miyuchedes bo yizbrach kasheosim kol magmosi b'Torah u'mitzvos, and she will then go back again into this place of complete yichud with the Rebbeinu Shalom when I put all of my aspirations into Torah and mitzvahs, meaning that I let go of every other agenda. I'm letting go of making myself a name in any other way. All I want to do is Torah and mitzvahs lishma. I want to serve the Rebbeinu Shalom. Why? Because he needs me to be over him, and that's why he created me. Laubish behem kol eser b'chino, to enclose all of the 10 bechinas of my soul into the act of the mitzvah canal. The mitzvahs tefillah, and specifically with the mitzvahs tefillah, to scream out in the pain of my nefesh elokis, but megalusa, begufi, and meshukatz, that is in galus, in my disgusting goof, to extract her from this prison that she's in. This is called tshuva or maisim toivim. She maisim toivim she'oise kedei lahashiv chelik Hashem l'makoyer v'shoyeshet the kalmin, and that's called tshuva or maisim toivim, that returns her back to her place. So this is really the finale of these chapters. Is he saying you were doing really good, yeah, you were mamash pumping, you were serving Hashem with thought, speech, and action. Everything was looking great. Yeah. And then, unfortunately, kind of inevitably, you started to identify with the fact that you're doing really good. And then you fell into arrogance. And even though you've not stopped being good, you've become arrogant in your goodness. And now you're not serving Hashem anymore. So now what you have to do is you have to, in a down time when you're feeling a little bit down, especially after having assassinated your character in the past 2 chapters, now you have to pivot and think about how, even though you're doing Torah and mitzvahs, because of your arrogance, because it's now serving your own selfish purposes, your neshama is in galus inside you. What's the tikkun? I want to get back to avoid lishma. Rebbeinu Shalom, and that's what the Moanayim said on the Chazal that says metoich lo lishma boy lishma. Yeah, he said it's not. Don't think that serving Hashem lo lishma will lead to lishma. He said it's from the low lishma you come to lishma. He added from the fact that you hate the fact that you're serving Hashem lo lishma, from that you'll come to lishma. And that's what the Rebbe said on the positive side. He said, put all your aspirations in getting out of your egoic state and serving Hashem exclusively without any thought of your own agenda, mamash. Yeah, and you will be matzliach, B'ezrat Hashem. That will rip you out of your ossified, stagnant, egoic Galastika Matzav, and it will dissolve, and you will mamash allow the Bas Melech, who you've been entrusted with, to sit back with her father in Shemayim. And that's a really nice place to stop on Yud Tes Kislev, although you're not in Yud Tes Kislev, I am. And that's a very big, I mean, that really, you could, very easily argue that is the whole essence of Sefer Tanya, is he takes the good behavior for granted. The real avoid of Tanya, the way I understand it, is the lishma, is serving Hashem, becoming heilig, getting out of your own personal agenda. He takes the good behavior for granted. He really does. He's like, if you've got a brain in your skull, yeah, then you've got absolutely no heta for any avera. Just like, as we said over and over, if a guy jumps out and offers you $1 million not to click on that website, yeah, or $1,000 not to click on that link, yeah, gone, no problem, yeah. So you're making a decision. So he just says, well, make the right decision. Don't serve him. So don't do averas. So what's the avodah of Tanya? The avodah of Tanya is the avodah of lishma. So you could really argue that everything we've just said here is really the very essence of the sefer. So that was very nice to learn that on Yud Tes Kislev. Okay.
Shmuel, how does one know if they're actually doing it lishma or not? How does one know? I think I went to ask you this, and you said you don't.
There's two. They read the same thing. Gabriel, what am I going to say? What's the best indication of your lishma?
I mean, I would say your ability to give it up when it's not called for.
Yeah, but there's something much more passionate than that.
Your wife?
Yeah. How much your wife likes you.
Yeah, I love this line you said. If you can trick your wife to think that she thinks you're a tzaddik, then you're a tzaddik.
Yeah, that's for true. That is for true. Your wife knows you. Your kids know you like 90%. Your wife knows you mamash. Yeah, but I think that's a very good gilui of where it's just my own thinking. I didn't hear someone say this, but how much your wife likes you is probably going to be at least a partial gilui of your lishma. But your lishma, sorry, Mike, let me just finish that. The when your car gets scratched, if you're lishma, it won't particularly bother you. When things don't work out your way, it won't particularly bother you. Yeah, when someone insults you or says something horrible to you, if it wasn't for you, this is just general egoless. That's just general, non-egoicness. And I have people telling me, I've had people now recently talking about the different drugs that they've done and these states of ego dissolution. Yeah. And I know exactly what they're talking about. And they are not, in my opinion, they are not that feeling of being merged with the infinite divine light and connected to the oneness of all of reality, etc. Yeah, that is not egoiclessness. That is just a really cool feeling. Yeah, egoiclessness is when your kid knocks over the drink, the Coca-Cola on the new carpet, and the only reason or the anger that you show is completely what's the word,
To teach?
Yeah. Well,
Contrived.
not control, meaning that it's the Toenis of the
With
child.
intention.
Yeah. There's no real anger there. Okay, great. You spilt Coke on the new carpet. So what? Okay. I mean, you should have don't it's not your carpet. Is that you should be careful. So I'm gonna be honest with you. Maybe I won't. Maybe I'll just laugh. Maybe that would be the best chinuch right now. Is that you see your dad laugh at the new carpet that just got ruined? Yeah, maybe that probably will be the best chinuch. Or like that's so all of these things that go on day in day out. If they don't if you're not taking it personally, if you're not getting offended by people, you're not getting you're not offended is for sure the whole thing. If you're not getting upset by other things, you feel upset for somebody because he's a nebuch, not because you can't help him not be a nebuch. Yeah, that's all of this is a good indication that you're moving out of lo lishma and into lishma. And remember, there's no end to lishma. There's no end. And I thought that was my Torah of why do you burn the lulav by Sofas Chametz? Because the lulav is the backbone of everything. That's the lishma. Yeah. So when you're burning the chometz, the lulav of last year, that was the lishma of last year. I'm burning that. That's not the lishma of this year. No matter how lishma I was last year, which is the backbone of everything, which is the lulav, that's getting burned with my chometz as well because I'm going to a whole new madrega of lishma. Yeah, sorry, Michael. Yeah.
At least in the concept of doing a mitzvah, to know whether you're doing it lishma. I once heard, I think it was brought down from Rav Chaim Volozhin, that if you can still do that mitzvah, but knowing that someone else is going to get the schar.
Yeah. Well, that's again. I mean, look, I'm not don't want to great from Rav Chaim Volozhin, but that could also be, I'm the martyr. I'm just saying again, everything can be used for like, that. See, and that's the thing. Like in our generation, when no one really believes in schar and oina, but no one cares about Gan Eden and Gehenna. Yeah, no one. Literally, everyone I ask, no one cares. Yeah. So we're talking now about the lishma is also the lo lishma is like the experience, the feeling, the meaning, that all that kind of stuff. So anyway, but yeah, no, I hear what you're saying though. Okay.
Oh yeah.
Shkoyach, everybody.